Welcome to the Listen Up podcast, where we explore hearing loss, communication, connections, and health.
Hey everybody, Dr. Mark Sims here. I'm the host of the Listen Up podcast, where I feature top leaders in healthcare. Past guests include Vance Morris and David Kemp of Oak Tree Products. This episode is brought to you by Listen Up Hearing Centers. The reason I am so passionate about hearing loss is because I lost my brother twice. First to the radiation from the brain tumor that he had, which led to a hearing loss, and then from complications from the tumor itself. I help patients to effectively treat their hearing loss so that they can remain better connected with family and friends and remain independent. I'm the E of ENT. I only take care of ears. I've performed over 10,000 surgeries in my life, taking care of patients, and also treated many more with hearing loss. I'm really excited about our guest today, and I'll talk about that more. I'm also the founder of Arizona Hearing Center and Listen Up Hearing Center. I've written a book called Listen Up, A Physician's Guide to Effectively Treating Your Hearing Loss. If you want to learn more about the practice or the book, go to listenuphearing.com. Today, I'm really excited to having a guest. It's John R. Luna. He's a seasoned executive with a strong general management and commercialization experience who has held leadership roles at all levels in starting, building, and turning around consumer electronics, self-care devices, and medical device companies. He's had over 29 years of various leadership positions, including C-suite positions. The reason we're having him on today is he's currently the Chief Revenue Officer and President of Americas for Nuheara, and we're excited to talk about what he's doing in that space. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Dr. Sims. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Mark, please, and it's a lot easier. Tell me a little bit about how, your pathway to Nuheara, right? Is that correct?
That's correct, Nuheara.
Tell me about it.
Sure. I joined Nuheara a year ago. I've followed David and Justin, the two co-founders, since the inception of the company in 2016, and saw them at CES as a competitor in the audience during their keynote speak when they launched the products in January of 2017. I've been intrigued by the hearable evolution of technology and kind of the convergence of technologies going back, 30 years in college when we dreamed of having mobile phones and cell phones and that type of technology with the ability to do things in the ear with hearing aids. And so, the evolution of technology and where things were going in my career, it was the perfect time to join the company.
That's right. So tell me a little bit about your product and where you position yourself in the hearing space.
I think one of the things for Nuheara is it has a unique in situ hearing profiler called Ear ID. And we've had that clinically validated twice now at the National Acoustics Laboratory in Sydney, Australia. And it basically, can test a person's hearing thresholds in the ear through the devices, through the use of our app. And it can do that at 500, 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000 cycles per second in kilohertz. And then based on the NAL, NL2 algorithm, sets a prescription for them for their specific hearing profile in each ear.
Yeah, so for the listeners, the NAL or NAL2 is a system or a prescriptive method to fit hearing aids to give them the appropriate adjustment so they maximally rehabilitate people's hearing loss, correct?
Yeah, and as you know, everybody's hearing likes are unique, right? Not every ear canal is the same, and so it all goes to a lot of other factors, not just the algorithm and how we provide the amplification, the augmentation to the ear, but also then goes down to the physical fit and other factors within the profile of the listener, and then what you can do with the app to adjust for their specific likes or subjective likes.
So is that listener driven?
It is definitely user driven. Yeah, listener would definitely be in control of how they want to adjust the parameters for themselves. They also, as their hearing changes or they experience different, perhaps noticing a difference in their hearing, they can actually retake the ear ID and then have that recalibrated automatically to fit their profile anytime.
So basically you can recalibrate it anytime via the app?
That's correct. Yeah, through the devices.
And so what's the distribution channel for this? In other words, how do people get it?
Initially the company launched in retail and then soon learned that retail is difficult. And so over the last 7 years, from online e-commerce to distributors, and then in retail. We have about a 50-50 right now of commercial, general, mainstream retail, and then online e-commerce, whether that's our own or that's a partner's e-commerce site. COVID years were about 80% online, direct to consumer worldwide. And now we've seen a resurgence come back over the last year in mainstream retail as people are out shopping again.
And so where are those mainstream retail places people would find the device?
In the US, Best Buy is probably by far our largest distributor. We have other distributors. We're also in audiology clinical practices and private practice audiologists, as well as chain or owned
big group.
Clinics. Yeah, group clinics. Yeah.
Okay. And so, excuse me, can they find those locations at your website?
Yeah, they can find them on our website, or they can just go online. We're also sold on Amazon.com. So much like your book, you go where the readers are, you go where the buyers are. So we have a lot of ways to buy the product, and really the goal is to make it accessible for folks that need some help.
Can the device measure discrimination in terms of?
No, and that's the one thing that we don't test is speech discrimination. And as you know, there's the hearing loss, right, for communication, and then speech discrimination. So that's something we don't test.
Okay, great. And so how about connectivity? Does this device have connectivity with various?
We do. We have Bluetooth connectivity. We also have a TV streamer that's a companion product to the product, to the IQ earbuds. And so somebody can listen to television directly to the IQ buds and basically have their own listening experience and control the volume through the app, while the room can either be, television can be muted, or it can be at a volume for someone else in the room. That's the number one use case when people realize at home they have somebody in the home has a different like or listening experience regarding television. And sometimes that indicates a hearing loss. Sometimes it's just a listening preference. So we have that ability to customize for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is, well, not nothing, but one of the most uncomfortable experiences is watching television at a volume that's louder than your own personal preference comfort level.
Yeah, I mean, people have there's as you know, clinically recruitment, right? But there is that point for everybody where it's just too loud, right? Whether that's an annoyance factor, a frustration factor, or actually evidence of a hearing loss or clinical recruitment. It is one of those things that we can provide that calm in the home. Again, also it is late at night if somebody's watching a show or something and they just want to stream directly and not have the volume on in the room. It gives them that personal experience as well.
Yeah, I didn't even think to ask you. Are you wearing the devices right now?
I am. I'm actually wearing them now.
Yeah, because I was like, I mean, I see them, but I'm so used to having podcasts with people with earbuds or something. I didn't even think that. Yeah.
Yep. I have 3 sets because I'm on. They have about a 5 to 7 hour streaming battery life. If it's just in listening mode, and if I was using it just for augmented hearing, it's closer to 8 hours. But I'm on a lot of podcasts, a lot of video calls, and a lot of calls all day. So I make sure that I've always got a backup pair ready to go.
No, that's great. Well, you might have the connection to get hooked up too. So.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. And so where do you see the future of hearables? In other words, where do you see this whole world going?
Well, so I think during the intro of this OTC hearing aid legislation and the enactment of the rule, I think it's given opportunity to companies like ours as well as others. I see this either going in one of 2 directions. One, they're going to become OTC hearing aids in the U.S., or they'll continue down the personal sound amplification pathway, and that's really an FDA decision. We're all waiting for that final rule, but we've positioned ourselves to go through a clinical study and a 510K process, and we've submitted the 510K for a self-fit hearing aid in the U.S., and then eventually, most likely, that would transition to an OTC. So
if I'm to interpret this correctly, if the rules come out in what you consider a favorable manner, you'll be moving this device hopefully into the OTC, over-the-counter hearing aid.
Our hearing aid that we have developed is a little bit different than this device with regard to user interface and the app, and some of the things you can do with it will be a self-fit hearing aid, and then depending on the rule, would become an OTC hearing aid.
Oh, great. Great. And so how do you see the distribution of that? In other words, how are patients going to be able to access that?
I think it's going to be everywhere. We have interest from the large groups that are dozens to thousands of private practice clinics in audiology. We've got interest from the ENT community as well, in groups that we work with, and then direct to consumer and through retail. So I think it's going to be everywhere because we want obviously to stay with the vision of accessibility and affordability that the company has. And that's really the whole crux of the OTC legislations, right? It's to take that person who has a mild hearing loss. They might have 100% discrimination. They might have only situational need. They're not ready for a hearing aid. They're not ready to come and see you. They might not have any medical issues, or they're not going to walk into a clinic to get their hearing tested, but they're going to self-care. I think that's where this product is that first entry into that hearing journey for them. I think many of them will, as you're well aware as a physician in the space, people think their hearing is better than it usually is.
Yeah, I always say you don't know what you don't hear.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't hear, and you don't know until you're clinically tested, right? Until you have a screening. And so, in many cases, they'll graduate quickly because their hearing loss is not going to be able to be helped. And I think that'll be part of what we're going to see happen. And so I think that'll help raise the water level for everybody. And I think in other cases,
you mean the awareness, basically. It's going to increase patient awareness, right?
And I think there will be a lot of awareness in the U.S. When this happens, because it's obviously key to the legislatures. And I was in D.C. a couple of weeks back. There's a lot of energy around this and a lot of momentum for this to happen. So I think we'll see a lot of publicity around it, a lot of articles, and a lot of products that will be compared. And ideally, ultimately, all of us want to help people hear better and provide benefit to somebody's life, right? That's going to help them communicate, have relationships. And people are making this analogy to eyeglasses, and when eyeglasses went prescriptive to over the counter. But like you said, eyeglasses, you do that for yourself, right? Typically, hearing aids or hearing products, you do it for somebody else in your life.
Yeah.
For that frustration factor, that communication, that relationship side of things. And I think,
I think there are some analogies with eyeglasses that make sense. But one of the things is like, when I look at a screen and I can't make out the letters, I know that, right? So you don't see well, but you don't know what you don't hear. That's what I always say.
That's exactly it.
So where is Nuheara? What's its origin? In other words, where's it made?
So I'm in Bellevue, Washington, our U.S. office, and the company is based in Perth, Western Australia. And so all of the engineering, R&D, product management, operations, and executive team, as well as part of our customer service team, is in Australia.
Okay. All right, great. So that's why the testing and treatment at NAL, which is the national.
NAL created the NAL NL2 algorithm, obviously, and Brent Edwards is there. A colleague I've known for many years, and been in the industry back from my ReSound days all the way to working with Rodney Perkins and so on. So he and I have worked together in the past. He is there as a director, and it just made sense. The company's in Australia. We have a connection, and they do great work.
No, that's great. I mean, I just remember you saying at the beginning that that you did some validation testing at NAL. I was like, because there's a lot of places, but it's because it's an
exactly
Australian-born thing. Well, that's great. I mean, we know that a lot of great hearing technology comes out of Australia, so that's wonderful. And so, where do you see this market in like 5 years or 10 years? I mean, where do you think?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball.
Me too.
Yeah.
It'd be like Back to the Future, we'd go play all the ponies, right? Because
yeah, exactly. I think that, my perspective is, I've been in this industry about 30 years, and I've seen a lot of technology come and go. Over-the-counter hearing aids and PSAPs, it's all user-driven, and so what we did is a lot of work on our human factors, or our the usability testing with the interface for not only physical fit, but also just the ability to self-test and things like that with our clinical study and our 510K process. And it was eye-opening, if you've not experienced that before, because our average purchaser right now for this product here, is about 52, 53 years old. The average hearing aid purchaser is, in clinic at least, on average in the US, is about 72 years old. And so there's a big delta there from tech savviness to the ability to use an app to self-fit to just navigate your iPhone or your Android phone. And so I think the challenge as technology converges is the technology itself, and then that use of that technology, because there are so many apps and there's so many things your phone can do already that, adding then this and the ability to test yourself is either going to be support driven or it's going to be app driven. And that's something we're going to have to watch and see. But we're all putting, customer service, customer care in place to help the consumer through that journey as they have questions.
And so am I to interpret that correctly, that there was some implication that the younger people are using it because they're more tech savvy and you want to move further up into the older by making it easier and more friendly? Or
said a different way. That's said a different way. Our current purchaser is active. They like listening to music. They're hitting all the use cases for the most part, and they want augmented hearing, or they want to be able to control their sound environment. And so that's our current buyer, and that's our current customer, and that's our current support level of that customer. What we saw in our clinical study, and what we've seen in just in general hearing aids, is that 20% of untreated, the 80% of untreated mild to moderate hearing loss. Those folks are probably not in their 50s, right? They may be, but we don't know that yet. We don't know. No one knows where they are, right?
Well, the epidemiology suggests they're a little bit older than 52. Yeah. You're absolutely.
Yeah. So I think you're looking at somebody in their 60s and probably retired, maybe not as active, and they might not be using their phone like somebody younger would be in a work environment. And so I know from experience, having owned 15 audiology and hearing aid retail clinics and having been in the industry, that the typical buyer requires more support. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the OTC and what products win there.
So you're kind of in the early adopter phase of the people who are willing to maybe enjoy even the fiddle factor. And then it's how can you support the people who are a little bit more resistant to that? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the early adopters come in that know they have an issue, that they haven't done anything about it. We're going to see that as the first wave. And it's the longevity of that over the next 4 or 5 years to see how that plays out, because these products will be available everywhere. I mean, you don't have to have a licensed practitioner. You don't have to be a physician. They can be bought. I mean, if a local 7-Eleven decides to carry them, you can buy them there. If it goes through a clinic, you can buy them at the clinic. If dentists or ENTs or any other allied professional in the medical field wants to have this as an option, they can do that. So, and then on e-commerce and everything else, it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting to see who it'll be, right? It's going to be a grand experiment in and of itself, right?
Yeah, it is. It's never been done before.
Right. But I mean, I haven't really thought about in terms of where you are now and how it's going to expand and what those people are going to look like. And I'm sure you guys have thought about it, but you don't know either. It's going to be kind of, let's see what the experiment shows, right?
Yeah. And we work with, large, let's say Best Buy as an example. I mean, they've put a lot of effort and they've created their own category for this, because within their ecosystem of loyalty customers, as well as others, they have the demographic, right? They know these people are looking for technology like this, right, and they know that they'd like to keep it within their system. That's true of large pharmacy chains. That's true of any large retailer that has a database of consumers and understands the demographic and the aging demographic and needs that they see. And they're not just looking at hearing; they're looking at everything, in healthcare that can be a self-care type product.
Yeah, no, it's exciting times. That's for sure. I assume that's why you decided to get in this space.
I actually grew up with a grandmother who had hearing loss, genetic hearing loss, and then my father. When I was in college, I was undergraduate speech pathology and audiology, and I needed clinical hours, and basically I brought him up for a test and was testing his hearing, and over time I had a graduate student with me, and he kept having a hearing loss, and I was like, what? My dad doesn't have a hearing loss. I grew up with him. And but the reality was, you don't know what you don't know, right? He was undiagnosed until he was diagnosed, and then he's worn hearing aids ever since, and it changed his life. And so I've seen from personal experience what it can do, and that light bulb moment of watching it personally, as well as working with so many, clinic patients at that time and watching it over my career, that's what I love, right? I mean, that turning somebody's lights back on and letting them hear again. It from a surgical sense to from cochlear implants all the way through, hearing devices. But it's remarkable because you are bringing back something that they've lost.
Yeah, no, they don't realize how disconnected or impactful it is until you do it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's impactful because every time it happens, there's something in their life that they've missed. Whether that's the raindrops on the window, or whether that's thunder at a distance, or whether that's just the sound of a loved one or a family member or their dog,
or the hum of the appliance they didn't realize made a noise.
Right, and I think a lot of new cars have been sold because of hearing again.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a patient said, I forgot when I tinkle in the toilet, it makes noise. I was like, yeah, I guess you would forget that.
Yeah.
It's very funny. It's like, it's a very simple thing that a lot of people take for granted, but if you don't hear it, right?
That's right.
No. Well, it's really wonderful that you're in this space, and it's going to be exciting to see where this all goes. And actually, I'll, circle back at some point to find out where you guys are and what you're doing, especially sounds like you're kind of in hold waiting to see what some of this regulatory agencies give to you in terms of the parameters for you to expand into a larger market.
Yeah, I think we have a good idea because of the published rules. And, we obviously work closely with our regulatory and compliance folks. I mean, the whole thing with products like this is, for the consumer, safety and efficacy. And I think that's always been, something that Nuheara and legitimate companies in the industry have focused on it. It's that safety, efficacy, and then ideally, again, customer satisfaction and use.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, one of the questions I love asking people is what's your favorite sound, John?
All right. My favorite sound, I grew up in Southern California.
Okay.
Went to the beach every weekend. And it goes back to my childhood. I love the sound of the ocean. And then all the noise of everyone at the beach. It's just calming.
All the kids' voices and everybody having a good time.
Just everything blending together as a beach background sound.
So, well, this has been great. I'm really excited to learn more about your product, John. For the listeners out there, if people wanted to get a hold of you or learn more about your product, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can just go to our website. It's www.nuheara.com. It's NUHEARA.com.
And how about to connect with you if they wanted to get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, John R. Luna. Don't forget the R. If it's John without the R, then somebody else.
Fair enough. Well, everybody, this is John R. Luna. We have he's the Chief Revenue Officer and President of Americas for Nuheara. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much for sharing about your technology and the story of the company.
Thanks so much. Great connecting with you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Listen Up podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.